In episode 4 of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, Drew and Ralph continue to be the highlight of the show. Drew and Ralph decided to have the counselor over so that they can talk about their horrible dinner that they had on the last episode. And Drew was saying how she was tired of the higher highs and lower lows in their relationship. And Ralph continued to gaslight, saying that any woman would be happy to get the stuff that he gives her, but she doesn't appreciate it. And then the therapist told Drew that she needed to live in a moment and that she deflated the evening. I disagree with that because it sounds like he wanted her to walk on eggshells just to keep from pissing Ralph off. And then the therapist gave them this 30-day challenge where they would have to go 30 days without being combative with one another. And if Drew was to mess up, she would have to do whatever Ralph wanted for 24 hours. And if Ralph messed up, he would have to do the same for her. And what kind of threw me off like a red flag with the therapist, he gonna say like, well, if Drew messes up, then she would have to be Ralph's servant, even if it meant that she had to have sex with him 24 hours a day. Whatever it was, she was going to have to do whatever it was that Ralph wanted. And I feel like that's dangerous advice when you are dealing with a narcissist, because a narcissist will purposely provoke the situation to get her to go off just so that he can win that challenge and then use that to get her to do whatever he wanted. It was just something I felt like that when you're dealing with a narcissist would be able to twist. But on to when the group goes to New York. They all get together and they go to New York. And while they're in New York, they all decide to go to lunch. And while they're at the restaurant, the conversation came up at the table as to why certain ones weren't wearing their wedding rings. And when it got to Drew, she was saying that she wasn't wearing her wedding ring because after she had the babies, it didn't fit anymore. And that her and Ralph was having problems, so she just decided not to wear it all together. And so after that, Drew decided to tell them about the counseling session that they had and telling them about the challenge. And everybody agreed that that wasn't going to work. And then Ralph proceeded to go on and talk about how he fired the assistant. And he wanted Drew to get over it. And that's when Kenya jumped into the conversation. And she pretty much went off on Ralph and told Ralph that he reminds her a lot of Mark on how he talks hurtful to Drew and how he talks to her. And how he makes Drew feel like she's crazy, like making her feel like she didn't say things that she knew she said. And then Kenya proceeded to call Ralph an asshole. And then the episode kind of reminisced back on when Kenya and Mark was together and how Mark used to gaslight Kenya and try to make her feel like she was crazy. And I think that was a trigger for Kenya. And, you know, she was just pretty much letting Ralph know that if that was her, she wouldn't be taking that off of him. She said she would flip that table if Ralph was to talk to her like that. But in that conversation, Ralph started to laugh. And that even pissed Kenya off more. You know, she was like, why you laughing? This is not funny. You know, so she was just real pissed. And Ralph was just sitting there gaslighting and doing what he always does. But then Marlo jumps into the conversation and say, well, it's not just Ralph. It's also Drew. Drew does some of the same things that Ralph does. And I think that was very dangerous. And even after she said that, everybody else started chiming in too to check Drew. And I don't have a problem with the group wanting to tell Drew about herself, but I felt like it was dangerous to do it in that setting because when you're dealing with a narcissist, he'll use that as supply. And when they get in private, he'll take that and twist it around and forget what they said about him. He'll just take and say like, well, they look at what they said about you. You do this and that too. It's not just me. And he'll take that information and try to throw it back in her face. I felt like if they wanted to give Drew some advice. I think that they should have did it not around him. So that was pretty much how that episode went. I still feel pretty bad for Drew. It doesn't look like it's getting any better. And I feel good that Kenya stepped up, because Kenya and Drew didn't have the best relationship. But I felt it was big of Kenya to step in, because she'd been through that same situation, and she could see for herself what Drew was going through, and she could see the hurt. And so I was glad that she kind of stepped in to let Ralph know, like, I see you. So that was that episode. Did you guys get a chance to see it? And how do you feel about Kenya jumping in to defend Drew? Let me know down in the comments. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys on the next one.